Lorne Pavelick has been waiting nearly 20 years for justice. His son Misha was 19 years old when he was killed at a party near Regina Beach. Now, a 36-year-old man has been found guilty of second-degree murder. He'll be sentenced in March. I'm joined now by Lorne in our studio. Good morning, Lorne.
Good morning.
So, Lorne, let's start off. Can you tell me about your son for those that didn't know and want to know about Misha?
He was an active 19-year-old, and prior to being 19, through his school years, was very athletic, wannabe bass player, musician, and just I think a normal kid growing up trying to find out who he was.
Lorne, over the last 20 years or so, there's been times where there's been, probably things that you've heard. There's news, there isn't news, the police keeping you informed. What has that been like, just the weight?
Reflecting back, because it's so recent, in the context of us getting to trial. But for years, I guess I felt like because I was the go-to guy in the family. Family members are spread out from Nashville to Vancouver Island. And so I felt I had to bear a little more and not filter things, but I was the contact for RCMP. And gratefully, they kept us informed, but me specifically first. And I can't say enough about what those men and women have done for us.
And over the years, you've kept the media informed and people in the community that wanted to know what was going on. And there have been different anniversaries and ceremonies and murals for your son. The podcast that came out a couple of years ago seemed to be the major kind of breakthrough. What was your reaction to that process?
Well, that podcast was the first that the RCMP in Saskatchewan had ever done, not been done before. And, it was the catalyst for a lot of response, and people started to step forward that were silent before for a number of reasons. I think these are young kids out there traumatized by what they experienced that night. And so it took a while for them to figure out what they were going to do about their future. And at that age, it's a tender age, trying to figure out how do you deal with trauma and fear. Some of them feared for themselves, their safety, and consequently they didn't step up. And even at trial, most recently, it was kind of, you could see it, you could hear it. The trauma doesn't leave. Those kind of events are dramatic in one's life. And in the life of a young kid, I shouldn't say kid, I guess, a young teenage person, that's something they will never forget. And it's how do you deal with it moving forward? And I'm concerned about a few of them because I think they've been affected. It's affected their life, the trajectory of their life, and they need help.
During the trial, you're there supported by your family, your loved ones. As you mentioned, there's, those that took the stand or traumatized by what happened and their memories of it. When you finally do get to the trial and you're preparing yourself for what you're about to hear, how did you deal with that?
Well, there's this thing called a prelim. And I don't mean that in a light fashion, but the prelim kind of opened the doors for some things that we had not heard before, details we had not heard before, specific things. And at trial, Yeah, there was a lot of witnesses called, I think close to 30 or something in that area. So there was a lot of repetition, but what was fascinating was more specific details. One in particular that sticks out of my mind, you can't prepare for. The night my son was killed, one of the young women that was there phoned me. The RCMP officer that had called, that had attended to the scene, asked her what she was doing, and she said, "I'm talking to Misha's father." And all I could think of was, put the phone down to his ear so I can tell him I love him. And in my mind, I'm convinced he heard that. He didn't respond, but I had that opportunity to say my goodbye at that point. So hearing the actual witnesses, the people that did do that, this young woman corroborated by RCMP officer, it was just one moment in that trial where I thought, yeah, I didn't imagine that. It was real.
Lorne, when you get to the jury's deliberating and you're preparing for that, and I know there's different possibilities there that you're going through in your mind, that it could be a number of different things. What was it like, waiting for that, and how did you prepare yourself for the different eventualities that could come?
I think the family as a whole, we had talked about that, the eventuality. I mean, it's impossible to stare into a crystal ball or, any of that. But in real time, saying, okay, whatever happens, it took us over 19 years to get to trial. And the results of what the jury was to find it was them, not us. And quite frankly, the fact that you've got a group selected that are Regina residents, members of the community, doing something that's extraordinary. We're very fortunate to be in a society where this occurs. And so in my mind, I wasn't thinking the worst, but I was thinking, well, maybe it'll be found in a different way, the answers. And when the chair of the jury stood and delivered the verdict, it was unanimous. And I was like in shock. Others around me were emotional. I didn't get that way right away. It took me a few moments to realize what I was hearing. And it was not, the word vindication was not there. I just had feelings. I looked over at the individual who's been charged, at his family. And I think to myself, at that time, I thought to myself at that time, they're suffering. They're now traumatized by this. And so this event has multiple ripples. It affects all of us. Anybody that was out there, the family, our families, including the defense, the prosecutor, the judge, all those people were there for a reason because of a decision by one individual. And
There's still more to go in this, and you'll have another court date where the sentencing happens. That's not till next year.
Yeah.
What do you want from this? What's your message to people out there that are hearing this? And you're talking about all the families and those affected by what's been going on.
My belief is that if you're in a situation like this, You can never fill, I've discovered this personally, that grief, you can't fill that hole. Impossible to fill that hole. So consequently, I've tried to focus more on gratitude, the fact that others have stepped up. Our Crown Prosecutor, remarkable young man, highly professional, compassionate, explained a lot of stuff to us. And I began to understand that there's no resolution, really. It's that this will be part of our lives until I'm gone. And members of the family are moved on to whatever their lives are going to be. Those chapters have not been written. Misha's chapter of life ended at 19. So that realization of trying to carry guilt and shame and frustration and anger, it's a dead-end street, dead end. And it'll absorb like a sponge any goodness that's there and create big problems. And yeah, I don't know if that answers your question very well.
Yes. Yeah. And you're speaking of, gratitude taking the place of those feelings.
Yeah.
Lorne, really appreciate your time and you coming in today. I know it's a difficult thing to talk about, but we do appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.